By the year of 2000, The Rock had become a household name in the world of professional wrestling. He was charismatic, could wrestle, and his leadership qualities showed when WWF was without Austin. It didn't miss a beat with the Great One on top. Of course, when Austin came back, he's like, give me that number one spot back. But they were 1A and 1B, but Austin edged it out just a little. 2000 was a marquee year for The Rock. His wrestling success is amongst the reasons, but of course we have to mention his acting career. The Rock had a couple of roles in TV and movies. His role as the Scorpion King in The Mummy Returns was a highlight. His performance was praised and led to his starring role in the namesake movie, The Scorpion King in 2002. The Rock's time in the WWF was slowly dwindling and it wasn't helping the product one bit, especially after WrestleMania 17. That was the worst one because Austin had just turned heel and had nobody barring The Undertaker to feud with, so an American hero was up for the task. Upon Rock's return, I feel like he regressed a bit as a character but increased his in-ring skills. This version of The Rock is the best in-ring. He had impeccable timing and there was just so much electricity radiating from him during matches. Following WrestleMania 18, The Rock went away once again. His final appearance came during the 2002 WWF Draft, and this was at a very opportune time for the WWF as they had a bunch of young guys on standby. The original plan was for The Rock to take over the SmackDown roster. He was supposed to be the number one guy, but the Grey One had to promote the Scorpion King and in addition was nursing a minor knee injury. Long story short though, it was a hiatus from the WWF. Rock's time with the company was certainly winding down, no doubt about it, and he had a way out, unlike most of the wrestlers, and this was not only financially incentive, it wasn't as rough on his body as wrestling was. So at this point, it wasn't the same because after all the fun and games, The Rock was going to disappear. On the June 17, 2002 episode of Raw, Vince McMahon was promoting the appearance of Stone Cold all night long. This came shortly after Austin's walkout from the previous week. He claimed Austin was in the building, but this turned out to be wrong because the person Vince was expecting wasn't even Stone Cold. It was The Rock. The fans went absolutely insane over this arrival. The Great One was back, and the fans, they were satisfied, no doubt about it, because Rock hadn't been seen on television since after WrestleMania 18. He said his finally catchphrase and told Vince that it doesn't matter what he thought in regards to Stone Cold Steve Austin. He threatened the boss to leave, and he obliged. In a symbolic twist, Rock proceeded to throw the beer that Vince had brought in right at him. With the ring cleared, Rock finally addressed things. He acknowledged sure he was a SmackDown wrestler, sure he wasn't supposed to come back until a month, but with recent events, he had to. He went on a rant about everyone wrestling do what they do because they love it, and asked that if there's anyone in the back that doesn't want to be with the company, well, just like the slogan, they can get the F out. Rock ain't coming back in July, he's coming back at King of the Ring. Why? Because he has WWE in his blood, and Rock said, quote, Austin can take his ball and go home. As far as I'm concerned, this is home. Now in some ways, this could have been considered a way of moving forward and showing Austin as great as he is, and as great as his contributions were for the company, was in the past now. The Rock was here to stay, although some didn't realize that this was just a free trial because he wasn't going to stay for long. Rock did return at King of the Ring, and other than a little moment with Booker T and Goldust, he ended up interfering in the main event and almost cost The Undertaker his title match. The match itself was a rough affair as Triple H wasn't in form at the time and lacked that fire from 2000. It just wasn't an interesting match. Rock coming out was most definitely the best part. He got involved with both men and ended up making an enemy out of both, especially Undertaker, who ducked the chair shot meant for him. So now he pissed off Triple H. The Grey One rebounded and hit a rock bottom on The Undertaker with so much venom and anger, and even then, The Undertaker retained the title and decided to make the mistake of calling out an energetic Rock. This was one-sided as hell with The Rock prevailing, but he ended up walking into the pedigree, who then walked into the chokeslam by The Undertaker. So it was clear that a feud between the two was on the horizon. For The Rock though, he had to once again disappear for a couple of weeks until the July 11th, 2002 episode of SmackDown. The Rock's disappearance mostly had to do with media appearances. He was going out, promoting stuff. His intention was straight to the point. He wanted The Undertaker. Now at this point, The Undertaker was champion. He was pissed off at The Rock. He didn't understand why someone with a massive ego like Rock tried to piss him off of all people. At the same time, he had to deal with Kurt Angle, who had him beat, tapped him out in the middle of the ring, so Vince booked a triple threat match involving The Undertaker, Kurt Angle, and The Rock. But as I was saying, Rock's intention was straight to the point. He wanted The Undertaker. Kurt Angle, however, had a big problem with this because Kurt Angle was a challenger of the title. He bragged about his accomplishments and with a lot of confidence told Rock that he'll make him tap out too. It was all serious business and even claimed that he'll tap out Puff Daddy. I see Kurt Angle listens to Victory. Or does he? Instead of fighting back, Rock was all about jokes, making fun of him for being bald. He even called him Dr. Evil. Angle called Rock yesterday's news and told him that there's a new number one guy. The Olympic hero thought Rock was all of that because he won the Teen Choice Awards. He's like, oh, teens love me. You know how much my autograph costs? And Rock's like, $1 million. You know, he's mimicking Dr. Evil. Angle's pissed off. He's incensed with Rock and his lack of change, and he's still the same man making jokes every day like he never left. whereas Angle called him a freaking child, and he proceeded to challenge him to a match for next week. This was no problem for the Grey One as he accepted. However, he wanted to satisfy the fans and give them something tonight. Rock proceeded to lay the smacketh down on him and even forced him to tap out to his own move. The Undertaker came in and took advantage of the situation to drop both men and, as Taz said, take control of his yard. The Rock didn't leave the arena after this, instead opting to stay around for the main event. He wasn't going to let that little incident slide, and he was like Dolph Ziggler in 2017. He was going nowhere. The Brahma Bull made good on his promise and dished it out on both men. As to the main event, well, it was heated. Angle and Rocket was going all over the place, and I almost mean that literally. They were tearing each other apart right in front of the Undisputed Champion, who had no problems with the action going down. Of course, this was for the taking for the Undertaker, but unfortunately for him, he didn't take advantage, and Angle proved that he could make the Rock tap out. So, it was an intense build. They showed that each man has a great chance of winning. Rock, because he's The Rock. Sure, he's going to Hollywood. Sure, he's not around often. But at the end of the day, he's the most electrifying man. He's the #1 guy. Kurt Angle, this guy tapped out The Rock, showed that he's a massive threat to the title, and The Undertaker, it's his yard. Okay, it was a great build. Undertaker had a lot of disdain for The Rock ruining his title match. Kurt Angle made him tap out, and to top it all off, the champion had to defend his gold against both men. This match itself needs no introduction. If you want an introduction, go watch the promo for the match, which is probably a top 10 WWE promo. It's that damn good. The match itself is so good to the point where if you tell me it's a top 5 triple threat match, I would agree and even say it's not number 5. Yet Kurt Angle at the top of his motherfucking game. This man had no competition beside him because he was in a whole different stratosphere, and Golden Ball literally unlocked his final and most powerful form. The Rock was on his way out and was ready to give it all for this last few weeks, and The Undertaker, experiencing a resurgence as a dominant heel, had finally reverted to being a face and was doing exceptionally well. This was the definition of outstanding, and this match had zero problems. It lacked boring moments. You know those matches, oh, it was a nice match, but there was a boring part. You can't say that here. One of the best matches in this era, no doubt about it. Angle was on a mission to recapture gold. He was doing well. He had a great performance here, one of his best performances of the year, but ultimately he was the fall guy for the Grey One, who won his 7th WWE Championship. This was all shaping up to be a huge moment for the then rookie Brock Lesnar, because there was no bigger way for him to get to the top than toppling the face of the company. The next night on Raw, The Rock thanked the fans for making last night an exciting match, but that was last night. What about tonight? And Eddie Guerrero came out. Random, because Eddie Guerrero is literally a mid-carder at this point. He has no business being out here because obviously Rock's busy with other people. Latino, he had just returned a couple of months earlier, and this man had a lot of fire behind him. He called him La Roca and said that he had a problem. And he had a lot of issues from Rock stemming from his own household, because his girls had a poster of him and loved him to the point where they were hanging that poster on the daily. So he showed them discipline and ripped it up, and he was reenacting this thing right down to the motions on the stage, leading to Rock calling him a psychopathic freak. Talking about The Rock being a movie star, well, what about you? He's like, oh, you had a string of hits, and asked if he was Cheech or Chonk. Eddie started bragging about looking better than The Rock and how he had the hottest haircut today, and I'm just wondering, like, who's he lying to? The people's mullet, he called it. He then said that Eddie looked like Billy Ray Cyrus mixed with a hyena. It's one of those Rock things, you guys know. Guerrero promised to teach Rock a lesson like he did to his daughters. He had a lot of interest in that title, but Rock had no problems with the match between the two and started singing La Bamba with his own lyrics. And Eddie was close to laughing, hearing Arriba, Arriba. Eddie wanted the fight and he got it. As for The Rock, he passed by his future challenger. Okay, that segment was so damn entertaining. It's literally one of the most entertaining segments from this year. Off the top of my head, this was outstanding. It was funny, it was entertaining. Eddie was a vicious heel, at times funny. Rock, of course, responding to him, made him look like a joke, whatever. I loved it. If you never watched it before, you should. I'm pretty sure you're going to enjoy it. The main event between the Grey One and Latino Heat for the time given was pretty damn good. It's unfortunate that they never faced off later, but it is what it is. Hollywood Rock versus 2003-04 Eddie Guerrero for a title would have been amazing, though. It's better we got it here because Rock had stamina, he was on his A game, and 2002 was probably him at his best in ring. Sure, I wish we got that in 2004 or whatever, but it is what it is. Eddie had a beautiful counter to the Rock bottom. Rock was exceptional here and absolutely electric inside the ring. He obviously won it because it wasn't going to end any other way. Right after the match, the rookie Brock Lesnar confronted the champion. He didn't do anything here but fouled up on SmackDown and cost The Rock and Hulk Hogan the tag team titles. This wasn't the main story though for The Rock because he wanted to focus on Ric Flair. It was basically his going away tour, hence him facing these icons of the game. That said, Rock told him to bring it and showed zero fear. As for Ric Flair, Rock thought this was an amazing opportunity to face yet another legend. This man was having so much fun here and he knew it was his final day, so he was trying to savor it and enjoy every single moment that was coming from this run. And when looking at this match, it's almost surreal. The fact that Ric Flair, the Nature Boy, the icon of WCW, the 16-time champion, was going one-on-one with the Grey One in the main event of Raw. Big deal. And similar to Eddie, this should have been a bigger deal, but we're lucky that it actually happened instead of being a situation where people wondered, what if Ric Flair versus The Rock actually happened? But it did. It happened here, and it was good. Flair was a de facto babyface because they were in Greensboro. He had his moments, but you know how this ended. Of course, Rock was almost unstoppable heading into SummerSlam, but that was bound to end. Brock Lesnar didn't need to do much, and all he had to do was bring himself to the ring and allow for Chris Benoit to capitalize and lock him in the crippler crossface. Lesnar was building something special, destroying Hulk Hogan and taking him out, and of course Rock tried to pull his pants down verbally, but then Triple H got involved. And Triple H getting involved was the worst case scenario for him, and he started talking about who he is before saying, quote, undisputed champion, so shut up. And at this point, Triple H was more dead than The Undertaker. You guys know this meme. You guys know when Rock says shut up, you guys see it on Twitter often. It's literally that iconic. Triple H couldn't fight back. He claimed Rock would get his ass kicked if you walked into this ring, and the champion saw this as a challenge. The game was looking forward to it, and Rock's like, oh, go get me a bologna sandwich because this does not concern you, because he obviously wants to talk about Brock Lesnar before a brawl ensues. Lesnar got involved, leading to Triple H hitting that pedigree. The champion was absolutely incensed and demanded Bischoff find a way. Now, a match so big could it be made for that night? It was next week. Here, though, they faced off in an 8-man tag team match, and oh man, what a match this was. The heat and excitement radiating off of it. It was one of the last matches of its kind, and these matches happened often in this era. Shortly after this, the matches lacked that crowd element. They were around, they were amazing, but they weren't 10 out of 10 like here. And I can't tell you much about the match, but it was pretty damn good. It had the electricity from the crowd, not to mention the wrestlers themselves. There was just something special about it. The Rock, though, still had to deal with Chris Benoit. He made fun of Benoit, told him to just bring it in German and Chinese. And despite this, Brock Lesnar was lurking around. Once again, the main event was rough and intense. Both men were going all out, and unlike the last matches, these two had more time. Lesnar was preying on Rock's downfall, and it was very close, but The Rock pulled through and won the match. Later that week on Raw was a big match with the game. Paul Heyman wanted to play some mind games, so he handed Rock some pictures of Hulk Hogan. He also brought a videotape, which Rock almost refused to see because there's a chance of Paul being naked or whatever, just some weird stuff. You know Rock. It was a tape of Lesnar's destruction over the last few months. As for Brock Lesnar, Rock told him to just bring it. This turned out to be the final time Rock and Triple H faced off. It was a decent match, but there was other stories around that stood out, like Rock and Lesnar and Triple H and Shawn Michaels, so it was thrown out the window. Back to Rock and Brock. Lesnar promised to make Rock cry like a little bitch, and right when he heard this, he came out. Rock said that Brock's hype and talk has brought nothing to him until tonight. Tonight, there's no jokes, none of that, and since Brock doesn't want to bring it, maybe he will. Just as he's going down to the ring, Benoit and Guerrero run into attack. They assaulted him and followed up with Edge. So a tag team match was made for the main event. Edge and The Rock faced Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero. Of course, the champion turned this into a comedy thing, no selling them, talking about how he could do everything, throw and spit his testicle. It's some complicated stuff, I can't really explain it, but it's a very entertaining segment. Then Edge chimed in and did the catchphrase. They ended up making good on their intentions, and Brock finally got the chance to go one-on-one with the Grey One. The champion was overwhelmed initially, but he laid the smack down and sent the challenger running. Strong build. What I love about this one is that they basically maxed out the potential for the feud. What I mean is they made good on the potential on the story. Of course, it would have been bigger a year later, but with the rookie Brock Lesnar in there, a man who debuted only 4 months earlier, they did an amazing job of portraying him as a hungry challenger. They couldn't have built him up any better than they did, and the match had a strong aura around it. The way it was promoted, the training videos with The Rock going through intense drills and practices to prepare, and of course Brock's training sessions. The way parts of the match were built, it would belong on WrestleMania. Brock Lesnar in particular just stands out. He wasn't overpushed because number one, he looked entirely different from the roster, and number two, his offense was safe but looked extremely rough. There was an aura, there was something special about this guy. It wasn't just, oh, WWE decided to push him, and the fans in Long Island were much more than welcoming for him. The same could definitely not be said for The Rock. This man was booed like he was leaving WWE. Oh wait, he was. The New York crowd knew what was up, hence the booing, and the match itself was heated. It's pretty short for a main event, but Rock did his job like a pro. He worked hard, was displaying some of that amazing talent he had throughout the year. The Paul Heyman element, he was interfering, getting his ass beat, and the result was obvious, but it doesn't hurt the match at all. There's an undeniable energy surrounding this match, and both men complemented each other well. Ultimately, it was Brock Lesnar's moment to shine, and The Rock did the honors. So now, there's a new star being made right in front of the fans' eyes. Brock Lesnar. Great match. I love this match. I watched it a couple of times throughout the years. I enjoyed it every single time. You know, like, my interest didn't dwindle in the slightest whenever I go back to watch it. It's good. After this, the fans booed The Rock, and he cut a heel promo on the way out, and he was gone. He was basically gone. He went to film the rundown, and by the time he came back, he was Hollywood Rock. So this run had come to an end, and things weren't the same from here on. Okay. That's The Rock's return run. Very good. For the time given, you know, Rock was around for literally 1 month, a month and a half. He did a lot. That's what's so amazing about it. Rock came in, this guy was getting everything done. He was facing Eddie Guerrero, Ric Flair, all these guys. Had a quick title reign, which stands out, and went away. It was good. He was very entertaining. Sure, some of the jokes had grown thin by this point because 2002 Rock was not 1999 or 2000 Rock, but still, he was very entertaining, electric. In ring, he was at his very best. This was his best run in ring, no doubt about it. It just was. My favorite match from this run was the Vengeance Triple Threat match because, well, All three men were in form. They felt like they could steal the show. They did just that, and it's one of the greatest triple threat matches of all time. There's no doubt about it. It was that damn good. My favorite segment was Rock and Eddie Guerrero. Rock and Eddie really should have had a program because of how entertaining things would have been, but hey, I already said it. It is what it is. I'm glad that it actually happened at least once, so there's that. Yeah. Rock put over Brock Lesnar, went on his way out, got booed, but by the time he came back, turned into a heel and managed to get cheered for it, and he wanted to make fun of the fans for booing him in the first place. So yeah, alright, what do you guys think of The Rock's return run? Please comment down below and answer for this video. Make sure you hit the rock bottom on the like button and perhaps the people's elbow on the subscribe button. Peace, I'm out.